So first, I thought maybe I'll just introduce myself and give you a little bit of a background of who I am, who Konnected is, and that we're working with Premier on this project. So my name's George Spears. I'm the owner of a company called Konnected Technology. We work in a lot of industries, but all centered around making smart systems. And by smart, we mean digitalization of physical processes or systems that you might have at your marina, for instance. My background is I'm an engineer. I spent most of my career in the automotive industry, in high volume manufacturing, but also have actually owned and operated a boat manufacturing company as well, which is where my love of boats and marinas comes from. So we worked a long time in this space in the automotive manufacturing, and felt that there was a need, and it was time to try to bring some of this smart technology that we have over to the marina side of the business. So with that, we really need to answer the question is, what is a connected smart marina? And this product is really centered at the marina operation, as opposed to specifically to the boaters themselves. And so what I mean by that is a lot of these different systems are really working to help centralize and manage different systems that you have in the marina, to control different things, and also to mitigate any risk situations that you come across. And so we won't go through all these in the presentation here, but some of the big ones that we know that are of great interest to people is actually internet systems, one that actually works for your entire boater population in your marina, but also takes it further and gives the marina the ability to actually collect revenue if they want from different packages that they might put forward. We have the ability to, if you're a marina operation that has multiple sites, be able to manage all of your sites from one spot. And in the case of internet systems, actually share that usage that they're authorized at their home marina to some of the visiting marinas that are on your same system. We have access control. This is fully integrated with the whole marina management system, and gives the marina the ability to not only control access, control guest access, but actually have useful and easy to access reporting if there are issues. This system can also be tied into the camera system to bring those events together. Just one sec here.
And we had a question on if you're sharing your screen, or just wanted to make sure from my.
I am. Are you not seeing it?
No. No.
Oh, all right. I'll cancel that and try it again here.
Okay.
Let me know if you see that now.
Yep.
You do. Okay. Well, let me back up what I was saying. So the connected smart marina, really, what is it? And it's a series of what we call modules that will connect into a centralized system to help you manage your marina operations more from a facility standpoint as opposed to the boater experience. That's not 100% true, but the majority of it's related to your facility. So at risk of repeating myself here, but one of the main systems we have is a fully managed internet system. We recognize that there's a dire need for that to come into place in the marina space. And we'll go into it a little bit deeper, but it's really managing the incoming service to make sure it's sufficient, but also the distribution side, which is the side that the boaters connect to, and make sure that there's fair access to everybody for whatever system is spec'd in there. We have the ability for multi-site control. If you're a marina group, you can manage all of your marinas with this system from one spot, and go on to share internet access or gate control access between the different marinas in your spot, from your home site to your visiting sites. Then we have some other stuff that really gets into more of the facility side. We have the ability to monitor anchor tensions, and then take it a step further and actually control the anchors if your system is set up for that. Fire detection we do through thermal imaging, so we can use a small amount of equipment to get you great definition on what's going on in your marina, but then take it a step further that you can configure it for automatic mitigation measures, such as starting fire pumps, shutting off shore power, setting off sirens, whatever, or connect it right into your regular security fire system that you might have. We have one in the middle here, which is Smart Dock, which is a new product that we put together that really monitors dock levels in floating docks, but then can also go a step further to actually automatically control the level through automated ballasting systems. We have structure loading. So this is for like snow loads and ice loads that you might have on your canopies over your marinas. Give you ample warning in areas that's at risk, so that can be corrected before you have a structure failure. And another one's smart lighting. So this is actually controlling facility lighting, and then we're just working on a piece that will help control beacons, monitoring charge levels, and operation of those remotely. Okay, so with that, what I thought we'll do now is just start into the main system here. So we have a somewhat simple marina management system here. We're well aware there's other competitors in this space, more focusing on the point of sale type transactions. We offer this in here more for the marinas that don't have any current system. If they do have a current system from somebody else that they like, we will integrate with it if that other provider allows us to bring this information across. So we don't want to duplicate efforts, but we do need sort of this information as the basis for how the rest of the system operates. And as we go through the dashboards on the system, you'll see that there's basically configuration pages for each system. And then at this level on the marina management system is where you do the local settings for a particular boater, whether they have gate access, internet access, mobile internet, which we'll talk about, which is a little bit different, and actually power submetering as well. Okay. So jumping over to the actual system here. So this is sort of the main page for a marina company that has a whole lot of marinas. They at a glance, they can see if there's an issue with any one of the marinas, where you see sort of a red blinking icon here. So something's going on with this particular marina. You can select into it here, and you come into the actual marinas dashboard, and it again is showing that there's some problems going on. We got an anchor tension issue here. We got some hot spots coming over here. This is a structure issue on this one. This is really for illustration purposes, but basically it gives you a single dashboard that you can glance on that is really bringing whatever issues to the forefront. If we select say a boater in here, this will bring you to that simple marina management page, which is either you can enter the information here or it pulls it over from another system that you might have at your facility. What you're really getting into here is more the gate access control, the internet access control, mobile internet if they have it, and submetering for power if the marina's set up for that. So you can go in and enable and disable these different things in here. The first one we really want to sort of talk about is the internet. So this is not your normal internet system that most marinas seem to be struggling with. And what we identified here is there's really two issues, two things that you need to take into account when you're providing internet to your boater population. One of them is speed, and that's referred to as bandwidth. And the other one is the amount of data that's being consumed. And so basically what this system is doing is helping the marina in a very simple user interface set the capacity of what their internet system should be to support all the boaters within their facility, and then making sure that it's distributed fairly to each person in the marina with really strong signal and good speed and whatever the appropriate amount of data is that they're allowed to use. And so just as an illustrator here, you can see what we're showing in this screen here is kind of the heat map of the Wi-Fi distribution coverage on the distribution side of the system. And we'll get in on the dashboard, but we'll show you how it's set up to figure out the capacity of the system, so the system is sized properly to make sure that you have a successful internet system. And then there's on the boater side, you're able to see what their usage is, who's connected, how many connections they're allowing, if they're allowing guest connections, all those kind of things can all be managed. So first, we're going to look at the management side. So this would be what we would call the global settings for the internet system in a marina. And so the failure that happens with a lot of these internet systems in marinas is they might have one internet connection coming into the property, and they're trying to spread it out over 200-300 boats, which probably all have 2 or 3 connections each, and everybody shares passwords, and quite quickly they run out of bandwidth, which takes the system down, or they run out of their data allotment, which would also take the system down. And so the way we do this is we allow the facility to create internet plans that they're going to push out on their system. And they are allowing the number of devices that are allowed to connect per slip. They can charge a price for it if they want. They're allowing the monthly data limit per slip and the minimum bandwidth that would be deemed acceptable for the users in that slip. And so they can set these various plans. If they do put a cost in here, it actually starts to generate revenue for the marina to recover the cost of the internet services coming in. So in this example, if we go over to the right-hand side here, we're showing this is a marina that has 417 slips. And based on these different plans that have been set up in here, there's actually a device capacity of 1,390 devices. That's how this is all generated in here. It's showing how much data is going to be allowed based on these data limits that were set for these various plans, and also the bandwidth consumption, which the bandwidth is really what takes down most of these systems and makes them non-functional. And so it's a considerable amount of bandwidth just in this example here. And the last column is the revenue that's actually generated back for the marina to recover the cost of the internet services coming in. So based on these settings, it's showing we have available bandwidth of 4,000 megabits per second, and we've allocated 3,930. So we're really kind of at the limit here. It's doing the same kind of calculation for the data capacity. In the middle here, we're showing what the month-to-date data consumption's been. And on the very left-hand side, this is the ISP services, which is really the incoming internet service. And right now, it's saying we have 16 services coming in to support both this data capacity and this bandwidth. But we're at the limit here primarily because of this bandwidth. We're in the red here. If you click into here, you can see what all these different incoming internet services are. So we have the ability to provide a very high-speed 5G internet service, but the system doesn't have to just connect with our stuff. It can connect with, Comcast if there's a broadband line available at the property, or Starlink if there's satellite available. It doesn't matter to us. What we're doing in here is setting the data limit for each one of those services. This max bandwidth is really what the advertised speeds of these different services are. Average bandwidth is really what you actually see at that particular location. And so all the capacity calculations are really based on this actual number that you see at the site, because obviously that's the one that matters. And so that at that point, we're wanting to give the Marina the ability to size their own system within their budget with what they want to provide to their boaters for free, for instance, or if they want to generate revenue back to pay for it. They're able to do that with complete flexibility in here. We also have a section here which really is on the facility side, very similar to the moorage holders, but you're able to control the usage and speeds for your employees. For your IoT would be any other devices like cameras and gates and stuff that are using internet for their connectivity, and your office, store, shop. Very similar. So on the distribution side, I mentioned it was a managed system, and what that really means is we have a whole team of people that manage the hardware, firmware of that actual distribution of the Wi-Fi system. So it's not the responsibility of the Marina to figure out an access point is failing and it needs to be replaced or whatever. We have guys that are constantly watching the traffic flow, watching for any interference that happens because you have lots of access points, all those kind of systems to make sure that the system stays stable and operational, and hopefully basically stops the complaints that are typical. The system has also the ability to, you can change your ISP capacity if you want to go up or down. You can request seasonal suspensions. So marinas that run 8 months a year, 10 months a year, there's plans to be able to bring the system down to a minimal level during those off months. And the odd time, we'll see like one of our ISP services starts to go slow. You hit this button, it will automatically reset with our carrier and bring it back up to speed. So that's what we deal with on the sort of the global side of the settings for the internet network. If we buzz over to here into this boater, and we look at the settings, and this is for the individual boater. And so for this Robert guy here, first of all, we've enabled guest access, meaning he can allow his guests to connect to the internet, but it's all tied to his slip. It's not like a guest can use everybody else's internet and it won't affect everybody else. We're showing the plan that he's picked, which in this case was 3 connections, 50 gigabytes of data allowed, minimum 12 megabit per second speed. But the system will dynamically look at any instant in time, how many people are connected, and give each person that is connected as much bandwidth as available, fairly distributed between everybody, up to a maximum speed of 100 megabits per second. So what I'm saying there, if you're in the middle of June and you're at the marina and you don't have that many boaters around because it's cold out or whatever, we don't limit this person's speed to 12 because that's what plan they picked. We let them go up to 100. But if the marina becomes very crowded, like on a July 4th, we ratchet them down, maintaining this minimum speed based on what they're paying for. You have the ability to look at the logs of this person with their access. You can actually even schedule internet access if for whatever reason you want to turn them off at midnight. And the down here is the actual in real time what they're currently using. So they're currently got 3 connections going. They've used this much data so far this month, and the current speed that they're being offered is 31.2. So it's in between the 12 and the 100. Over on the right-hand side here, so the owner of the slip, we want to make sure that they kind of have priority. So it's not like the mom and dad arrive with all their kids and they're untying the boat while the kids are sucking up all the internet and nobody can, when they want to get on, they can't get on because they've used up their number of connections. So what we're monitoring in here is the current connections that are connected to the internet system under this boater's account. The owner's devices, so the boat owner has their devices, all their MAC addresses of their devices are saved in there, which makes the connection when he comes back again instant for him. He has authorized users, which is people he's authorized to be on his internet plan over long term, and guest users, which are typically shorter amounts of time. So they've got some friend that's come and they're letting them have access for the day. They have as the owner has the ability actually to knock anybody off. If they've used up 3 connections and he wants to connect and there's none left, he can knock people off to let himself connect. You can also go into the uses of history for data consumption, and it plots at current year versus previous year. And the system has the ability to integrate with whatever billing system they're currently using, and will aggregate and send the billing over to that system automatically once a month. Or if they don't have that kind of system, it can print paper invoices that they can then get out to their boaters. Any questions so far? I like to talk a lot, so stop me if I'm taking too long here. So moving on to the next piece that we've noticed that there's a lot of variation and in a lot of cases systems that aren't so great for really managing them, and it's the gate control. And so the gate control system that we have can integrate with current equipment in most cases if you already have the magnetic locks or card readers. But or it can be a system that we provide in there. But the key to what it's really doing is giving the marina an easy way to dial in what their access rules are, and then having the ability to run reports and track it quite easily just if there is an issue that they need to see what's happened at the gates. So again, set up a similar way, so we have the global settings for the gate access management. Here the marina's letting or enabling whether the boater can actually invite guests or give them guest logins, which gates in the facility they're allowed to use, whether temporary access codes are allowed if it's if it's key cards or whatever format that the marina is using. We have an app that the boaters can actually access the gate with if they're allowed. In that case, we would send them the code to the app. You can set access schedules, whether it's a winter, global schedule for everybody in the marina, and then you can actually further refine that access schedule at the boater level if a boater in a certain slip has different privileges than other ones. It's keeping full logs that you can search for all the different events that have happened, and if they are guests, it is linking that entrance to that guest in that slip. So then if we buzz back to the boater page, we have gate access settings here, and so this is where you can see what their they have, but further refine, what they're allowed to do in terms of, access logs, for instance, will show all the access that's happened relative to the slip P24. You can, again, send temporary access schedule or set an access schedule that's specific for this boater in this area, different than the global schedule. Temporary codes, set different gates. If you want to, add another gate in here, you can do that, right? So, and then each boater can have a set of authorized guests that get added. These are people that aren't the people paying the bill for the slip, but they're authorized to be able to have gate access, and it can be on a time frame too. So it basically what I've seen in the past is, even down to metal keys some marinas have, and there's 10 million copies of that key, or there's a shared, keypad on the gate that 18 million people have. So your level of security at your gate kind of goes away. This is really meant to address that. Now,
George,
yes.
this is Dan. I'm confused. Who enters this? And does the boat owner enter this, or does somebody else then have to do something by at a machine to accept it? Or I'm confused.
Okay, so the for gate access, it's set up by the marina.
Let's take it simply.
Okay.
I have a boat.
Yeah.
And I have different people, and I have guests coming.
Okay.
Okay. Do I set this up, or do you set this up, or it is done concurrently?
There's two choices. The boater can set it up themselves as the boat owner. He can set up his authorized guests right on his app. Or if that's not something the boaters wants to do or capable of doing, the marina can do it as well. It doesn't require input from us at the system level.
So I'm the boat owner, and
Yep.
I enter the system somehow with a password, I assume.
Yep.
And I type in George Spears.
Yeah.
Does anybody at the other end have to do anything? Start that way.
Anybody at the marina, meaning at the other end?
Anybody at the marina, or anybody in your office, or anywhere else?
No.
Anywhere within the network system. Does anybody have to do something?
No, they do not. Yeah. So because the boat owner is authorized by the marina, to utilize their slip, and the marina has the ability at the global setting to say whether guest access or authorized user access is allowed. But assuming they've set that in their global settings that is allowed, then the boat owner is able to set up his authorized users and his guests on his own without any interaction by the marina or by us. Is that making sense?
I think I understand it. Whether it makes sense or not, I want to listen to the rest.
Okay.
Do you have something like this in place now, not with boats, but with other approaches?
Yes, we do in other facilities, like in manufacturing facilities, we do. Yes. Yeah. So the idea here is that we want to make it easy, or in other words, user friendly as possible, but give the marina as the facility owner the ability to control somewhat how they want the system to operate.
Let me ask it a different way. Do you have this in any other type of situation that is a hospitality issue, whether it's a hotel,
No,
RV parks, or anything like
Yeah.
that?
No, we don't. We've worked mostly in industrial applications.
So where you have it is the people who are entering, et cetera, are employees.
They're employees or guests of employees. So it's very similar. It's more of a work environment as opposed to a play environment.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions before we?
I'll reserve them till you go through it.
Sure. Okay. The next thing I wanted to bring up here is sort of the communication and connectivity of your marina to your customers, I guess, right? So we have a full app. There's available on dock kiosks, and what this whole system really is centered around is a couple different things. One is getting pertinent information out to boaters, like such as weather events or those kind of things, quickly. If there's any, a lot of marina gates will have all the posters plastered over the sides of them of different events that they're wanting to hold. So it makes that able to be done electronically now. It can actually go and link right to a specific page on the marina's website, for instance, or say they have a restaurant and the special of the day. It can link to that page automatically. So the marina, it's just keeping their website page update. They don't have to go and update these different systems. It will pull it automatically in. And then there's two other areas that it also kind of addresses. One is if people have maintenance requests or complaints about something at the facility itself, like a broken cleat or a broken board on their dock, they have the ability to put it in there, and then the system will actually gives the marina the ability to assign that to a specific person to fix it, and then it follows up automatically to the customer, whoever reported it, when it's complete, so that you kind of close that loop and help improve the customer satisfaction. The other thing that they can do is actually book service in their boats. So if we just put down here, they're able to, through the app or through the kiosk that's on the dock, if there's one there, actually books service requirements for the boat, where they can leave keys in certain spots, they can put in what they want done and the time frame that they're hoping to get it done in, and it basically then will feed over to the marina service shop system, whatever software system they're used. Those requests will go into there, and then they take it from there. On the customer messaging side, it has the marina messaging. So what I was mentioning before, if they have special notices they want to throw up, they can pick whether they want it to be on the kiosk, the app, or both. The dynamic site is the one that automatically pulls from their own web pages, so they're only updating in one spot, and the ability to enter in global messages. We also are tying this into like NOAA for the big weather events, and so you can get your hurricane warning or whatever will come across your app as well as on the kiosks. There is another revenue potential for the marinas themselves, if they so wish, where they can actually sell advertising on those machines and on the app for businesses that are related to what they do. Like, so for instance, a mechanic shop or an upholstery shop or whatever. If they want to go down that road, they're more than welcome to do that, and the system is able to facilitate that. All right. So the next thing I was going to bring in is not that. Is this? Sorry here. There we go. So we do a lot of this work in other industries using thermal imaging cameras, and the idea here is we're not a fire system, but we're giving you very early warning of issues that are starting to creep up in a marina, and then the key thing that insurance companies like, particularly in our other industries, is the fact that we can then actively, without human input, start some mitigation efforts so that it doesn't spread too fast. So in this case, it can be virtually anything that you want, but the obvious ones are probably automatic shore power shutdown, starting any fire pump systems that you might have on site, integration with your facility alarm system. So if it, if it's live monitored by some company, that signal will go to them. And it also, because it's all zoned, it can actually notify the boaters in that specific zone that's seeing the hotspot and let them know that, something's going on, and maybe if they're there, they can help or whatever. So kind of how that looks in the system, similar Marina map again, but in this case, we're showing hotspots in these areas. So you can pull into here, you can see the real camera view, with beside it is the heat map overlaid on it. So you can see there's an issue here and a few minor ones over here. With this system here, you can then, another view of it, it's showing the different zones that are in warning, but you can actually set the trigger levels for temperature, for instance, that you want it to trigger at. You can see some of the history of what's happened with the heat in that particular zone. Compare it to a year ago if you want. You can download those reports, or you can go into the automatic mitigation, where you can actually select what systems you want to be part of the mitigation effort in this zone, and based on what the trigger level set at is when those would kick in. So for instance, if we have the notifications, it triggers at 600. Auto mitigation triggers at 500, for instance, in this case. And so the Marina, again, has the ability to kind of set how they want that system to operate within their facility. So moving on here. Another one that we have is structure load monitoring. So basically using strain gauges and load cells on key beams within your facility. And it's set up very similar to the other ones, where there's you set your trigger levels, and in this case we don't have auto mitigation because we don't have automatic snow shovels yet, but we'll work on that, I guess. But in this case, you can notify well before you're going to see a situation like this happen, and you can do it with fair, because snow is generally somewhat constant over the roof load, for instance. You can do it with not many sensors actually in this case, but get lots of warning early on if that's what you want to do. So again, it would show up on the maps like this. This one's got some issues, and it's showing a high load on this particular one. You have the ability, this is more for us actually, to set up and calibrate the sensors when we first put them in. You can set the triggers for the loads that you're worried about, and again, you can look at the loading history currently and what it's done over the past. This one, sub-metering. Seems a lot of marinas are struggling with this one somewhat. This somewhat combined with stray current in some cases, actually. But what we're doing here is giving the ability, we generally do this through breakers, as opposed to right at the pedestal with pedestal meters. But there's a lot of new technology happening in the electrical breaker side of things that gives you, billing grade power consumption data out of the breaker, but also gives us the ability to turn it off and on. If it's as simple as the person hasn't paid their bill and you want to shut their power off remotely, or in the case of the fire suppression one, if you want to shut down power to boats if there's a fire event that's been detected. So it works very similarly to the other ones. You have the global settings page here. In this case, you have the ability to set up sub panels for your different shore powers on your different fingers of your docks. So you can go in here and decide, define what slips are related to this sub panel. You can actually right from here turn the sub panel on or off if you want. So there it just went off. Turn it back on. It's measuring your total consumption of power that you've had, the historical based on docks, which finger of the dock it is. And similar to the internet system, you can then set up power plans if you want for your different shore powers to start to recover some of your revenue. The billing itself can either spit out your monthly bills that you put it manually into your accounting system, or if your accounting system allows it, we can send that data electronically right into your billing system. At the marina management level, we got the same thing here, sub-metering, and now at this particular boater, you're seeing what plan they're buying. You can schedule their power if you want to turn them off during the night or whatever you want to do. You can individually turn them off. You can see what their consumption is, what their current month-to-date cost of usage has been so far, and then actually even see their billing status and whether they've been invoiced or if they paid or not. We're almost done here.
Well, George,
Yes.
with this power monitoring, what would we have to get your breakers, or are there commercially available ones? Are you using?
They're commercially available. They're not. We don't make the breakers. We tie into the breakers through what's called an API, like through programming language,
okay,
and pull the data and the control from those breakers.
All right.
So the best one out there is Eaton, actually. Leviton has some, but they're a little bit slow on the computer integration side. But I suspect it will come in the next year or so. But Eaton right now is the best one.
Okay.
I think, at least I interpreted Mike's question to be, can you tie into the breakers that come with the pedestals, or do you have to change them in order to be compatible with your system?
Well, they basically have to be what's called a smart breaker. And so smart breakers are a relatively new phenomenon in the world. And so in most cases, the pedestals are probably provided with what we would call dumb breakers. So they're not able to be remotely controlled. And so there's really two ways that you can do it, right? You can actually put a meter in the pedestal that then connects to a pulse counter that then sending us the pulse, which is how we determine the electrical usage. That's a little bit more of the older school way and more expensive way. The newer way, which has come with the advent of these smart breakers, is to do it at the breaker. The breakers already have the capability of collecting the usage data, but you have the further benefit of being able to control them remotely as well. Does that answer your question, Mike?
Yes. Yeah. We're currently doing it with the old school method.
With individual meters, is that what you're doing?
Yeah. We have CTs, and then we have them on a mesh system, so it comes back to a computer, so we can generate reports that way. Okay,
so like if you wanted to integrate that further, we're very much against reinventing the wheel. And so a lot of what we do is actually connect in with current infrastructure to bring it up to sort of the next level. So that also is an option of a way to do that if you have some of that hardware pieces already in place.
All right, that sounds good. Yeah, we've been using marine electrical equipment.
Okay. Yeah. So there's really two more that I wanted to run through quickly here. This next one is smart floats, and this is really a system that we developed for floating boathouse projects that we were involved in. And these floating boathouses, had boat lifts in them. So there was a desire to re-level the structure after, you lifted a boat in one corner or whatever. It can work in anything that's any floating structure, whether it's a floating marina dock or, restaurant or whatever. So again, it has the ability to monitor the levels and report them and notify if there's an issue. But if you take it further with the actual smart floats, you can actually mitigate or change. You can change the overall level of the dock if you want, or re-level different things. And so let's just see in here. And so in this example here, we're just each of these is the A dock, B dock, C dock, so the main fingers of the structure, and you have various level sensors around that are all reporting back into the system. We've had cases in boathouses where people had a different height boat and they're a little bit older, and so they wanted their dock to be at a different level to make it easy to get in and out. So in that case, you can actually just adjust the height of your dock, hit it, and it will automatically ride at that new height. Calibration more for us. Just like before, setting your trigger levels for notifications, but also if you want the auto leveling piece, this is the levels that it starts to do whatever you want it to do. And again, history. You can actually, if they have auto leveling, so this is an example of a building, and you will see that it's not only doing the level, but it actually derives the load capacity. So you can be in danger for loading. But if you saw there, it automatically leveled, showing you the ballast levels in each of the different float systems and what the overall height is now that it's been leveled. So not sure exactly how much in the marina industry will be interested in the mitigation piece of it or the auto leveling piece, but I think probably the reporting side where we're monitoring the dock levels will have some application for sure.
George, I don't understand the automatic leveling of a dock.
So when we're if we take this one here, sorry, you can see right now that it's crooked, right? It's got high load in this corner. And so it's actually using automated ballasting systems with full feedback control to re-level that structure. So it's calculating, what it needs to do in each corner to make sure that structure re-levels.
But I understand the math. I don't understand how it gets done.
By
Flotations are basically solid, unless you're having a tube with air. But even so, they're locked in at a capacity period. So how are you adjusting that?
Yeah, so it's based on automated ballasting. And so instead of the traditional floats that are foam filled, they're thicker walled air tanks that have the ability to be emptied or filled depending on what you need in certain corners. And so when we're designing, like on the boathouse side of things, we're designing the float placement and the sizes and quantities and which ones are linked together and not linked together to be able to, we basically computer model that and simulate all the different loading cases that could possibly happen, and that from there derive what the float sizes or the ballast tank sizes need to be to accommodate that. But once it's implemented in place, it's all computer controlled through floats or level sensors both inside the tanks and then outside on the structure to get the proper feedback loop.
So are you talking about an enclosed air system where you're inserting air or taking air out? Is that what you're talking about?
No, it's water. Taking water in, pumping water in, pumping water out.
You're using water as the flotation.
Water as, well, the air tank by nature has flotation because it's trapping air, right? But we're replacing that air or you're displacing water really with the tank, we're able to fill those tanks with certain amounts of water depending on what the ballast requirement is to level the structure.
So how does your system, I'm sorry, I don't mean to monopolize, but how does your system get the internet into the boats when they have problems getting because of blockage by the boat?
Oh, well, on the internet, it's all about the distribution side, and there's really we have systems in here that look at the decibel rating of the signal in all these different areas. So that's why it's hard to just say you're going to need exactly this many pieces because of the size of your marina, because there's all those environmental factors that come into play, including what the boat's made of, if it's covered or if it's solid walls, or all those different things. But it really comes down to what the decibel rating for the Wi-Fi signal is at the particular point where you're wanting to use the internet. And so we design them to be less than 50 decibels. It's kind of a backwards scale. The higher the decibels, the worse the transmission of the internet is. And so we design them at the 40 to 50 range, which is exceptional coverage level. And knowing that in certain cases there will be boats that are constructed of whatever that are really are blocking the signal in a large way. And so if those cases, we can easily add another access point, for instance, that they connect wirelessly amongst each other, and basically are boosting signals. So if you're getting spots that are seeming dead, it's quite easy to deploy another device that will boost it up in that area.
I wasn't really referring to dead zones. I was referring to, particularly on the larger boats, as boats getting larger and have more things put in them, that the larger the boats go, the more difficult I understand that getting Wi-Fi into the boat, at least in all areas of the boat, becomes limited. And that's becoming a bigger and bigger issue. So
yeah, like, I'm not sure how big a boats you're talking about, but in some cases boats may need one of the items I was talking about in here is we have the internet network, which is really the facility side of the network. But there's also the mobile marine internet solution we have as well, which actually can be right on the boat itself. But it's just like a big house. Distributing the Wi-Fi through a big house is very difficult as well, as if you don't have the proper hardware to distribute it. And so if the boat's like a mega yacht or something, they may even have to have a distribution system inside of their boat to actually get effective coverage throughout the boat. It really, there's not a one answer meets all. It's a case by case. But what I can guarantee you is there is a solution that does work in virtually every case I've ever been involved in. But it's not like an out of the box solution ever. Okay, so moving on with anchor control, very similar to the dock float control, but we're monitoring tension in anchors. So if you got fluctuating water levels and your anchors are going loose or tight even, we're able to notify on that. And in cases where there's actually power winches that work off dry contacts or whatever, we can actually control the winch itself. So we're not only monitoring tension, but we're also monitoring cable length that has passed through. And that combined with a weather station, we're able to kind of run an algorithm through that makes sure that, if you're in the auto tensioning world, that you're not like loosening anchors and the whole place floating away and because you've lost an anchor connection or something like that. So there's a bunch of different controls, safety controls in there to make sure that if it is an automatic, that it's not doing something that's going to cause you catastrophic failure. The last one I want to kind of talk about a little bit is there are certain boaters, so there's the facility internet for people wanting to use internet while they're at the facility, but there's a certain number of boaters that also want to use their internet while underway. And so, so we have, again, the Marina has the ability to actually monetize this for themselves, both with equipment and some recurring revenue if they want to sell and market those devices. And they generally, it depends on where you are in the world or in North America, but they tend to work 25 miles offshore and still have good internet. If you get farther than that, then you might have to look into Starlink or something, but it's significantly a lot more money. So I just wanted to throw that out there. It basically works the same way. They can provision it if they have the equipment in stock. For instance, they can provision it themselves. Basically, add a new account. Are they a moorage holder or not? If they are, tie them to the slip that they're in. It brings in their information because it knows which slip they're in. They can give us the SIM card and the device number that they have in stock. Hit submit in about 24 hours or less. That will come live, and that's all they have to do, other than collect money after. Yeah. So I think I went way over my half-hour allotment that Talia gave me, but I have all the time. If anybody has any questions, that sort of sums up what we wanted to go through in terms of Smart Marina.
George, thanks for going over everything. And I wanted to just say before questions or before anybody has to drop off, we will have this recording. Lisa will have it, and we'll also send out a link. And then if this is the first time you guys have been on one of these webinars, we are going to have short 15-minute talks over different modules that if you're interested in just kind of, if there's one area that you're interested in, talk with Lisa, George, put it in the chat. And that way we can do like a deep dive on any one of these as well. But for anyone who wants to stay on, everybody on our side will be here. If you have any questions or just want to open up any conversation.
Can you talk about the economics of this?
I think I'll defer to you, Lisa, how you want to talk about that. But I guess in general terms, it's by module. So whichever, you can pick and choose what you want to use. And the software side of it is licensed, which includes like continual annual maintenance and support of both upgrades in the firmware that they come automatically, or if there's a technical issue that you need resolved, we get our team on it right away. Typically, we can do 95 to 99% of that remotely. And then there's obviously whatever hardware is required based on whatever application that you're wanting in there. And so it's a little bit difficult to do one configuration fits every marina because of the size and shape and all those environmental factors that are involved with every marina. They have to be we have to sort of configure it out for you to really get you the proper number for your particular facilities. And so that Dan is what we're working on right now with regards to that facility that you sent the map over to Lisa with regards to the internet side, what it would look like. Lisa, can you add to that?
Well, all I can add to it is, I think what we can do is, if you have a situation that you're looking at, we can then, just give us the information on what the marina is, where the marina is, what modules they're looking for, and we can put together a price package for you. Because like George said, it's not just, we can't just do one price for every marina. And then it also depends, the pricing also depends on how many slips you have. How many, like when we talked about the internet piece, how many people do you want to be allowed on the internet? I mean, that all determines how many Wi-Fi boxes you need, what other sensors you need, what other pieces of hardware you need to make that all possible. I know that's a really crappy answer. But that's something that we can, if you can give us an example of what you're looking for, like Dan, like what we're working on for you. If you can give us an example of what somebody might need, then we can put together some pricing for it.
And in addition to the pricing part, we do have in general just what the value of making your marina smart. In general, there's something that came out that Lisa actually shared with us yesterday that we may pull out some information, because in general, there's just some return on investment areas that everyone might want to see. But yeah, exactly. Well, as far as the specific pricing, I mean, obviously that's on case by case, but I do think everybody would be interested in knowing that the trend, where people are investing, and where you can't afford not to make some of the improvements. So we'll make that available too.
And what about implement? How long would it take to get it typically? Like I send you my stuff. What would the turnaround be? Are we talking like a month time?
Like in terms of getting you a price estimate for the system?
No, more. I decide, yeah, you know what, this is great. I need the the main software, the internet, dock, access control, marina management unit.
Yeah.
Would typically take you guys to get it to us?
Yeah, within that time frame you mentioned, the month would be typical. Where the last few years have been a little bit tough in terms of equipment supply for our incoming equipment. It's gotten a bit better now, but in terms of the software side, absolutely. But in general, within a month, we can get the thing fully spec'd out, get everything in place, and then get our guys scheduled to come visit your facility and get it put in place.
Okay.
Some systems are easier than others. The internet system is one that is quite quick for us to implement, versus if you were putting in smart floats and stuff, that gets a little bit more complicated in terms of how we manage that at your specific facility. But the turnaround is quick.
Yeah, I think internet's the big one these days, that getting that to
for
work.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. And we do that internet stuff in a lot of different industries. One of the ones that we do a lot of is actually in the oil fields for their man camps. So not exactly hospitality, I guess, but it's a very similar thing where there's hundreds of employees staying in close quarters, and somebody's sucking up all the internet and making everybody else mad. And so we do have a lot of experience on how to make those systems work, but also make it easy for the site manager actually set the parameters of how it does work, and without, but not getting into the specifics of, you know, making equipment keep online and all that other side of it, right? So
Yeah, the biggest one seems to be, as the other gentleman said, getting it down into the boat. We find that we got a lot of sailboats in ours, and
okay,
they be acting as a giant grounding rod.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's just a matter of the systems we build are really capable of thousands of access points, and and they're actually a relatively inexpensive component once the system's in place. So you know, we do our best to predict what you're going to need, but at the end of the day, it's very important for us to make sure it's a system that doesn't cause you any complaints. And so, you know, there could be adjustments even at the time of installation that we say, hey, you know what, this is a dead spot because of, yeah, somebody's concrete, you know, sailboat here that is not getting signal in it. So we recommend you put this in place in addition. But it's in terms of installation, you know, these devices need power, but they don't need internet cabling to go out to every one of them. And so it makes the installation a lot less onerous at a facility.
So when you say it doesn't require cabling to go out to each one, are you using mesh then?
Yeah, it uses
to get that.
yeah, but it's a high power like mesh 7, mesh 6, and mesh 7.
Okay.
We also not necessarily always mesh, but there's also some point-to-point pieces of it where we'll send, you know, the higher speed signal out to a group of units. Because
Right.
if
So if you've got
relying
something
completely on mesh, it becomes kind of a bottleneck, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
So
And
you're shooting out point to point from your farthest one or somewhere in
yeah,
between to keep that mesh strong.
and doing it in several, it depends on the whole layout, but doing it there's several instances of that to keep the speed up.
Okay.
Yeah. You know what you're talking about. That's good.
I do a little bit.
Yeah.
The other portion I had a question, like access control, are you guys providing equipment on that and also doing APIs to existing like infrastructure that's there if it is there?
Yes and yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any preferred vendors right now that you work with that you have the API set that you are confident in?
Not particularly, like, so if it's like a full, like, there's a few different entry points for where you can get into an existing access control system.
Mhm.
You know, so you mentioned APIs, that's certainly one place, but we actually often go right to the contacts, normally open, normally closed, to actuate the, you know, the mag lock, for instance.
Okay.
So it can work in concert, I guess, with a current system if they have one, even at that level, right? And so that's generally, we've had the best luck with that, to be honest with you, because when we start to rely on another vendor's APIs, we're a little bit at their mercy as to how well their APIs work. And so going right to the actual contacts has been the best way or the preferred way that we like to do it if we can.
The only other question I have is you talked about maintenance requests and things like that, and the guests being able to put them in at a dock.
Yeah.
Now, does that require an existing maintenance system, or is there anything that you guys have involved that can manage that?
We haven't gone down the road of building a whole, you know, service shop management system. When we looked at it, to be honest, and it seemed to be a space that's fairly well populated already. And so we tend to like to focus more on stuff where we can make a distinct difference, and particularly in areas where there's the crossover from software and hardware to make automatic data collection. That's really the space that we like to live in, and from our manufacturing side of things, that's where we live in every day. If you take the marina management side of things, there's several companies that have their different systems for a lot of it's point of sale stuff, but for collecting mortgage rate or fees and all that kind of stuff. But if you look at most of those companies, do not really go down the road of integrating to the hardware side, and that's really what we like to do. So basically, it's simple, and it really resonates in the manufacturing world. If you're requiring somebody to actually physically put data into a system to make your whole picture work, that always becomes a problem. And so that's why we bring the hardware sensor stuff in, to kind of automate those pieces. And then down the road, once you have a lot of those pieces in, that starts to bring in the AI side of things, where you can start to predict what's going to happen and make changes before there's problems.
Absolutely. So is it two-way? So like if I'm a customer, I'm standing on a dock and I want to have my boat looked at, and I've got a certain number of techs that can take care of things, is there a two-way so I don't have guest booking services that I don't have people there to provide?
Yes, absolutely.
And that would, I assume, works the same way on the rental side. It tracks your inventory and won't let somebody rent a boat that you don't have.
Correct. Yeah. And so that is fairly built out on the rental side. And I purposely actually didn't really talk about the rental one, because there are a bunch of companies that are involved in the rental side of things. And I've spoken to a few of them about just integrating their system into ours. Let them work out all the the legal pieces with the waivers and the insurance and all that kind of stuff, right? On the service center side, a large part of our business is really customizing. We very much believe as a company that unless the system does exactly what you need it to do, you're going to not use it. You might use it for a few months, but then you're going to say, well, I need to use this as well to really get everything I need done. We work very, very hard to make sure that this is a system and it does everything that you need it to do, because that's the only way it's going to have longevity in your operation. So if your specific requirements on the service side of it, we by all means like to sit down with you separately and hear what it is that you exactly need it to do, and I know we can deliver on that.
All right, thank you very much for answering my questions.
Yeah, no problem.
George, how does your system differ for the internet only with other internet providers, other than you have a great personality, a lot of knowledge?
Well, I'm a very technical guy, and I would say internet is not rocket science. But what I see with a lot of other people that are working in this space is they're not really considering the whole picture when they're looking.
I'm sorry, you're fading out. You're not considering.
What I see with a lot of other people that work in this space in providing internet, they're not really looking at the whole picture and analyzing what is actually the source of the issue. And so in general, a lot of marinas, like a ton of marinas, are having problem with this. And it really is broken down into two sides. One is the supply side of the internet, and the other one is the distribution side. And I have not run across any companies, not that I've talked to all of them or a zillion of them that really are managing properly both sides of that equation. And you know, because basically, in simple terms, what's happening in a lot of these marinas is they'll get, you know, Comcast or somebody brings an internet line to their office, and then they're trying to shoot that out to all the boaters. And so the shooting it out to all the boaters part is the distribution side. So they might have a great distribution system, but their incoming signal can't support 1,300 internet connections on a single connection, and that's the piece that they're missing in a lot of cases. Other cases, it's the opposite. You know, they're like Gary mentioned when he was asking about the mesh thing. He picked on a key point when somebody is putting a mesh system, for instance, in a marina. It can be a very big bottleneck if it's not done properly, and so we see that happening a lot as well. And it's kind of unique in the marine side of things because, you know, the ability to run networking cable out to all those docks and all those spots is really not very practical in a lot of cases. So it's not a direct answer to your question, but I think I think honestly, a lot of the companies aren't really looking at the full picture to really assess what the problem is.
No, but a lot of your, I guess one of the questions in my mind is, what's to prevent any of the, let's call it the top 5 software companies for marinas to doing a lot of the modules that you're doing?
What's preventing them from doing it?
Yeah.
Probably nothing, to be honest with you. You know, like we have a lot of, I keep talking about our experience in the auto industry. We have a lot of experience with high volumes of data, and unless systems are designed, like software systems are designed to be able to handle that capacity, they become very unstable. And, you know, so we bring a lot of that experience. There's not a lot of software companies that actually integrate into hardware components to the extent that we do. So that's a big difference. Even in our manufacturing industry, that's a big difference between us and most others. But at the end of the day, you know, I'm sure they're very smart, and they could if they wanted to. It would take them probably quite a long time to get to that point, but it would be possible. And people like talking to me, like you said, right? So why try somewhere else? But one thing I can tell you is that our level of customer support, like technical support, is unmatched in the industry. We have a lot of applications that you know, if it's not solved within 15 minutes, it's catastrophic. You know, they're mission critical type applications, and so we have a whole group that's 24-hour support. Our average response time is less than 10 minutes, even if it's in the middle of the night. You know, and we spend a lot of time really listening to the customer, what they want for in terms of new features, but not ignoring and not pointing fingers to something else when an issue arises. We take it head on and figure out what the resolution is, right to the root cause of it, regardless if it ends up being something with our system or something that's it's connecting to being the problem. So I don't know if anybody else have any other questions or.
I have one more.
Sure.
I'm not sure where you guys are located. I'm in Ohio. Like, say there's a physical part that goes, like an access point goes bad, how does that get handled?
Well, access point's a simple one. We re-provision it and can ship it right into you, and all you do is unplug the PoE cable and plug a new one, and plug it back in and put it back up, and you're good to go.
Gotcha.
If
So
it's
a little
something
bit of,
more significant, our main install tech is in the Texas area. I'm in British Columbia, Canada, and so he's available remotely, or if it's needed, come on site. You know, obviously that's not within 10 minutes, but you know, it can happen quickly. Particularly with access points, if one goes down, we'll probably know way before you will.
right.
And you know, we'll have already initiated, you know, getting it, you know, updated or whatever it needs to be, or initiated getting a new one provisioned and sent to you, and we'll let you know.
Okay.
George, how does your system differ from what hotel systems are using?
It's very similar for sure. The hardware wise, a lot of it would be, you know, maybe the outdoor versions of kind of what a hotel system does. One of the big differences how it integrates with our with the dashboard that the Marina would use, with the simple way of managing the users and the usage at that point, right? So for a fully managed system, we don't want to, you know, honestly get into the, you know, setting up plans and stuff for the Marina per se, and managing, you know, the abusers and whatever else happens. So we've tried to make it a very simple user interface for basically anybody to be able to figure out how to do that and manage that system. So that piece of it's is definitely different than what's done in the hotel industry, or even airports, right? The same way they distribute internet similarly. They have the benefit of being able to run cable in a lot of places where we don't, right? So that also is another area that it differs. Yeah, and then there's a certain percentage, which I think is a fairly significant percentage, that don't really have great incoming internet service availability at their locations, and so that's where the ability for us to integrate with our own cellular stuff or with Starlink or whatever also helps that side of it from the supply side. But that cellular piece is really North America only, not South America, at least at this point.
Perfect.
Oh,
So was
I
that
have
good?
one more question.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No problem.
What about VLANing your boaters, your customers away from your internal network? Is that something that you guys are doing or have the ability to do?
Yes. So you mean your operation network being separate from your
Yeah, just
yeah.
so if I'm running a point of sale or something, there's no cross between credit card data and.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, and then that one page I was showing here was kind of just brushing on that. Where is it here? This section down here, facility internet. That's exactly what it is. Is creating a VLAN separation between the two, but also kind of controlling, you know, your dock employees that sometimes sit on the internet other than helping customers, you know, kind of ratcheting that down a little bit too.
They gotta watch Netflix between the guests.
That's right.
So George, if I'm a marina operator and I decide I do not want to charge my customers or give them rate plans.
Yeah.
Why do I need to know all of this stuff?
Why do you need to know all this stuff?
Yes.
Well, because that's the number one problem that happens is in a lot of these networks that operate like that, they'll have a single SSID, so that's the identifier of the Wi-Fi system you're connecting to, but they will have a single password, and there's no rate control over the guy that's closest to the access point using all of the data and all the speed, and basically eliminates any usable internet from the guy that's farther away. And so they can provide it for free in this plan, but they need to, like, for a successful internet system, you have to set limits on what each user can use. Otherwise, because you're dealing with so many users, that you'll get some kid doing online gaming, and he'll ruin the experience for everybody if you don't control it.
So, an unfair question to Gary and Mike. Do you charge for your present internet? Gary, Mike, either one?
No, currently we don't. We're looking at possibly doing a 2-level system where we'll provide enough that you could do email checks, small stuff. And if you wanted to get into some heavy streaming of that, possibly have a second level, whether it's going to be provided by us or a third party, we're still working on.
Yeah, so if you're using this system, it's easily set up to be able to do that, just like right on the fly. You can do that right off the bat, by setting up these plans. So this first plan, for instance, was 0. So that's your free internet, but you are controlling the speed, and maybe you want to crank it down farther if it's just email stuff. But then you can have your paid plans for the people that want to stream, or the super streamers, or whatever. But whatever you set up in here really filters its way through to what the capacity of the system needs to be for your incoming services, for it to be stable and make sure it works in your higher demand times. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Gary?
No, I'm all out of questions.
You are? Okay. Well, if you have any more, don't hesitate to pass them along.
So
Thank you.
I have a follow-up question for Gary and Mike. I'm sorry, but it helps me to evaluate this. Why are you thinking of going to a 2-tier system? Do you have competition nearby that's doing that or not doing that, and therefore you don't have to worry about it, or what?
From my standpoint, a 2-tier system, you're limited on how much bandwidth you can bring in based on what you want to pay. And so to provide like that first level tier where you can check your email is the basics that a customer expects. And where that second level is, hey, if you want to go out and stream a movie, we're not going to give you enough bandwidth for it to stream. You're at that level, it's more of a luxury, and it's something they pay for. Is how I've always operated my systems.
Yeah.
Yeah, with us, we have we don't have a land like a physical fiber coming in. We're coming in by microwave.
Okay.
So real expensive on the data. So in order to provide enough capacity, it's just going to cost us more. So
yeah,
we're looking at whether it's going to be easier for us just to outsource it to a third party, or bring a couple more links in and spread it out.
Well, I would think that we would even consider being your third party if you want to do that.
Yeah, we'll be looking at that.
Yeah. What kind of speed are you getting on your WISP service right now?
We're looking at 300 megabits per second.
Okay. And you just have one of those?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Most of the time it's fine. When we get into the busier weekends and that, it does slow down a fair bit.
Yeah. How big is the Marina?
395 slips.
Wow. You're making that spread far.
We got 36 APs out there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the distribution, yeah, the spreading 300 megabits over that many users is definitely gonna be an issue if you have anything more than internet, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Right on.
gentlemen, sorry, and ladies, forgive me, but I have to run. Thank you very much. Very interesting.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I guess we're wrapping up.
Lisa, did you have anything before we wrap up you wanted to add, especially on?
Nope.
All right.
No, I think George, you covered it well.
All right.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you guys. And also, if we don't have your email, which I'm sure Lisa has everyone's, but if you don't, if you can shoot it to us, and we really appreciate y'all staying on.
Sounds good.